Hello and good afternoon, everyone. We will make a start because it's 4 p.m. And I just want to start off by saying thank you very much for joining us for this webinar. I do appreciate how busy everybody is at the moment, and that it's difficult actually to carve out the time sometimes to work out planning for next year, especially with all the big changes around the early career framework coming online. So it's great to have you here, and hopefully you will find this helpful. Just to give you a bit of advanced warning, I have had a few technical glitches with Zoom this afternoon, so hopefully we're over them now. But if anything does happen, it might just be a technical glitch that I'll try and sort out as soon as I can. I would like to just introduce a couple of colleagues that I have with me this afternoon. So you should be able to see on the screen Belinda Goodship and Sarah Chanter. So I've asked them to join us. I'll be presenting, but they're going to be here to help me answer any questions, because I think probably most of you in the session are probably leading on the induction of new career teachers at the moment, and we'll be working with early career teachers next year, and leading that in a school is quite a significant job. Sarah and Belinda have done an amazing job in their schools this year on the early rollout of the early career framework. So I think they'll be really invaluable in terms of providing advice or answering any very specific questions you might have. So you should see at the bottom of your screen, there should be a Q&A function. Please do feel free to use that to pose any questions. I'll go through the presentation. You can pose questions as they occur to you, and then at the end we'll come back to them and we'll answer the questions as best we can. So to give you a sense of what we will be covering this afternoon, we will start off looking at an overview of the changes to induction. I imagine there's a chance you probably know a fair bit of this information, so I'll try to keep that fairly light touch. We'll then look specifically at the Ambition Institute Early Career Teachers Programme, which is the programme that we are delivering in partnership with Ambition Institute. So from there, we'll be able to move on to the specifics of what our delivery will look like and what our support package will be. And then we'll have a look at the questions and answers and any next steps that you may have to take. Okay, so to begin with, thinking about all of the changes to induction for newly qualified teachers, or early career teachers as they will now be called. And a key part of this is around the government's recruitment and retention strategy. So you can see here this data that 22% of newly qualified entrants to the teaching profession were not recorded as working in the state sector 2 years later. Now, those of us working in schools, even in schools where we feel that we're quite fortunate with recruitment, there is no denying that there are issues with recruitment and retention of staff in the wider system. And as a profession, we simply can't afford to continue losing early career teachers in this way. And the government have recognised this. So they've come up with a recruitment and retention strategy. And this focuses on supporting school cultures, reducing workload, transforming support for early career teachers, making sure that teaching remains an attractive career by professionalising it far more and making it easier to apply for and train to become a teacher. So this is really this idea of recognising that a key driver for many people in terms of job retention is their confidence to do their job well and their job satisfaction. And often those things are influenced by the training and support that people have to do their jobs well. So the reforms to induction are part of what the DfE calls the golden thread of teacher development throughout their careers. So looking at initial teacher training, the early career framework for teachers who have just qualified and in their first 2 years of teaching. And then we have the new suite of national professional qualifications, which are now recognising a much wider range of career pathways. But the ECF, the early career framework, is really pivotal to this golden thread. By providing an extended, structured and funded induction period, the DfE were recognising and actually investing in this idea that early career support currently for teachers ends too early. It's much earlier than in other similar professions, but if they wanted to do something about it, schools needed to have accessible and affordable support and materials for their strategy to work. So the changes that the DfE have made in response to this are, and in response to strengthening qualified teacher status and improving career progression, involved a commitment to creating the early career framework in the first place, extending induction and then really looking at that role of the mentor and strengthening the capacity in the system. So as a result of that, it means there will be more time for early career teachers to focus on their development from 1 to 2 years. So the DFE is funding an additional 5% off timetable for new teachers in their second year of induction. There is the enhanced entitlement to professional development, but this must be underpinned by the evidence base that is laid out in the early career framework. So the framework's based on expert guidance and the best available research, and it really sets out what exactly is it that is this shared body of knowledge that teachers should learn about, and what should they be learning to do. And as I said, that enhanced support from a mentor means that the DFE are providing funding to account for that additional call on mentors' time in the second year of induction. And there will also be the opportunity for mentors to access additional support themselves, including materials and training. So just to kind of summarise what the changes look like in a quite simplistic way, obviously here you can see what we currently have: 1 year induction, 10% reduction in timetable in year 1, access to mentoring and a professional development programme, but we're going to 2 years statutory induction, keeping the 10% reduction in timetable in year 1, but decreasing to a 5% reduction in year 2 that they wouldn't have had before. Access to 40 hours of mentoring in year 1, and then 20 hours, so fortnightly mentoring in year 2. There will be a professional development programme, but that needs to be based on the early career framework, and it needs to be sustained across those 2 years. To be really clear, this only applies to teachers beginning their induction, their first term of teaching induction in September, and from then they will all be entitled to that support over 2 years. And so that should really ensure that the support and entitlement is clear and is the same for everyone across the system. This is just to summarise for you how the funding works, because that 5% off timetable in the second year of induction is there for the teachers to undertake those additional induction activities in that second year. And the funding for mentors to spend time with early career teacher kicks in the second year of induction, and that's based on the 20 hours in that second year. So you can see here a summary of what that funding would look like. In terms of this funding, it comes through your school workforce census. So that is automatically calculated for you in response to the census. So in terms of what schools need to do, you basically have 3 options. Option A is that you can go for a fully DFE funded support programme to provide training and support for your early career teachers and for your mentors and your school leads. Option B is that you have you deliver as a school, but you use DFE endorsed materials. So they will make materials available, they will make a training programme available that you would deliver yourself in your schools. And option C is you go it alone. You design and deliver your own induction programme, and you have responsibility for ensuring that that is based on the early career framework. So if you are looking at option A, then all of the lead providers are appointed by the Department for Education, and then they will work with regional delivery partners, and those regional delivery partners might be the teaching school hubs, it might be a multi-academy trust, it might be a local authority, or it might be some of the pre-existing teaching schools. So there'll be 6 national providers who have a programme that they will then work with regional support partners to deliver that. And we are acting as a regional delivery partner for Ambition Institute, who are a national provider. So in terms of if you want to access one of the national provider programmes, I think it's helpful to know that the funding goes directly to the national provider for that programme. I mention that because I know that bureaucracy and administration in schools can be such a burden, and it's just useful to know that it's not that you have to get the money or find the money and pay the national provider and then claim it back, or anything complicated like that. It means that you need to let the DFE know you intend to use a national provider, you register with that provider, and then they claim the funding to cover the cost basically of giving you the training. Something that is important to understand is that there is some payment to cover mentor training, but only if you access one of the national programmes. And so that backfill money that you would get for the release time for your mentors to actually participate in the training that the national providers offer you. You don't get that additional funding if you're doing your own school delivered ECF programme. So you still get the time in the second year for them to mentor the early career teachers, but they don't get any additional funding to cover their training needs. So that's just a slightly different thing to consider, that you wouldn't be able to release your mentors with funding from the government if you were doing your own internal training. If you are using one of the national providers, the funding pays for the mentor basically to have off timetable 36 hours over the 2 years so that they can deliver and attend the training and to work with their early career teachers. So you can see here that the DFE only covers the cost of delivery of training if you're working with one of the national providers. Just another note as well, if you are choosing your own delivery option, either using the DFE materials or your own designed materials, you do also need your appropriate body to quality assure your provision. If you're working with a national provider, that isn't necessary because Ofsted are quality assuring the national providers training program, so that's all done for you. So there are particular standards which would apply whichever one of the 6 national providers you chose to work with if you were going down the option A route, and that is that your early career teacher is entitled to 23 hours of self-directed study, and they are entitled to 30 hours of taught sessions, 18 of which must be face-to-face. Likewise, your early career teacher needs to be able to deliver 59 hours, and they will have access to 36 hours of taught sessions, 9 of which are face-to-face. So whichever provider you go with, that is the basics set out by the DFE that all the national providers have to ensure they give. All the programmes are quality assured by the Education Endowment Fund, by the Department for Education content team and ministers before they actually reach the point of being designated as national providers. So although the time allocated to the assessment and the ECF programme is built in and is specified, you do need to be aware that different national providers will have divided up that time slightly differently, and I'll talk a bit more about how Ambition are planning to deliver those taught sessions and the face-to-face hours in a moment. And that's probably something you really want to consider what's best for your context in terms of how the actual delivery will work. You know, are they expected to be out of school for a day to access a whole day training face-to-face, or is it split over 2 or maybe 3 shorter sessions? So you'll want to think about the implications that that has for your school and what works best for your school in making a decision, because as I said, the lead providers will have split this all up in a slightly different way. There is quite an important point about assessment, and that is that although the early career framework for clarity was presented around the teacher standards, the early career framework absolutely is not and should not be used as an assessment framework for early career teachers. It's very important that the mentoring is seen as something developmental, and so those mentoring sessions need to be decoupled from any form of assessment, RAG progress assessments, or ticking off of the teacher standards, because as soon as you start to muddle those things, you'd be shifting the focus away from genuine development and working on genuine support needs that the new teacher might have, and it just runs the risk of it turning into a box ticking exercise to get them through assessment. And that's why the DFE have been very clear that it's crucial to keep the early career teachers' assessments separate from the delivery of the ECF and to keep it distinct. So early career teachers won't be expected to collect evidence against the early career framework, and they will continue to be assessed against the teacher standards only. It's also important to say, sorry, I'm having a technical problem, there you go. So your assessment of your early career teachers will be managed by your school's chosen appropriate body. So you will decide who you want to act as the appropriate body, and they will make sure that the assessment against the teacher standards takes place. There will be 2 formal assessment points in induction. So one will be midway through the induction period and then one at the end of the induction period. But there should also be regular progress reviews just to monitor progress each term, but they do not carry with them a formal assessment. And just to make clear as well that the 2-year induction will have no adverse impact on early career teachers' pay or career progression opportunities. So early career teachers will still be able to progress on the pay scale as the current arrangements allow, both during and after induction. So that was kind of the overview, and please do post questions if you have any questions about that. I'm going to move on now though to talk about the Ambition Institute delivery of the government's early career framework, which is a programme that they have called Early Career Teachers. So it's capitalised because it's distinct from the people early career teachers. It's the name of the programme that Ambition are offering as one of the national providers. So Ambition Institute have a lot of experience in designing and delivering professional development for educators at all stages of their careers, and they really focus on outstanding quality, recruiting outstanding people and developing outstanding programmes, and ensuring that everything is informed by the latest research, as well as their experience of delivery and their collaborative work with great teachers and school leaders. So in terms of sort of your choices, you know, you've got 6 national providers out there who can offer to support you in delivering the early career framework. So what I did in deciding which provider I wanted to work with in our trust was I looked at all of their offers. I looked at and kind of, I actually created myself a little spreadsheet that compared the different setups that they had, the different delivery routes, what I saw as their kind of strengths and maybe areas that I thought they could have developed more. And I was able to compare that and compare the structure. And when I went through that process, I can honestly tell you the only reason that we've arrived in this position of partnering with Ambition Institute was that for me, it was easily the best choice based on my analysis of the quality of the different programmes. And I did not want anything other than the best quality for the teachers in my trust. And that's something I really want to kind of emphasise, that for us, it's not about, we're not kind of having a big cohort of people. We're just working with a small cohort, and we're really thinking about doing our best to provide really high quality provision, because we think the early career framework could be really fantastic for new entrants to the profession's development. In our schools, we talk about something called the Sophie test. So Sophie was the daughter of the founder of our trust, and the idea of the Sophie test is that something we see in our schools or that we do in our schools wouldn't be good enough for one of our own children, then it isn't good enough for anyone's child. And that's always in my mind whenever I'm doing professional development for staff. How can I do my best to make sure the quality of teaching in our schools would be good enough for me to be happy with my own child experiencing it? Now, I completely appreciate that other organisations have partnered with other providers, and they will absolutely have their reasons for their choices, which will be valid reasons. But I felt we had some quite advanced understanding of the early career framework, which really helped me to make that decision. And that was basically because our trust CEO, Stuart Locke, he was part of the committee that worked on writing the early career framework. So as you can probably imagine, he was introducing us to the evidence base underpinning the early career framework really early on, when, you know, as he was working on it, and before it was published, we already had an in-school professional development programme that would have delivered really the early career framework. And as a result of that, we genuinely considered very carefully for a while, like, shall we just deliver our own programme in-house? Should we not do option A? Should we do option C? We've got the materials there, we could just deliver it. We were, you know, we were confident that if we worked on it and made it great, we would be able to pass quality assurance measures. But in the end, we felt that despite the fact that we've got experience and we've got expertise in the team, that what one of the national providers, particularly Ambition, could offer was that capacity and the quality of having a curriculum design team whose job it is to focus on designing an amazing curriculum for the early career framework. And we just felt that they have pretty much the best people working for them, and they would have a really well thought out, well sequenced, well resourced programme. They also had IT platforms that we wouldn't have been able to have access to without working with them. And they were so thorough in their approach to training and quality assuring us and our delivery. And they were so thorough in helping us train our mentors too, that it just made me feel as if we should definitely work with them. And I didn't feel as if it was an offer that any of the other providers could beat. So kind of having worked closely with one of the people that wrote the early career framework, I genuinely judge it to be the programme that shows most fidelity to the aims of the ECF. And I just want to illustrate that really with an example. You're probably familiar with this. It's the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve that illustrates how without regular review we're prone to forget what we've learned over time. And this links to the reforms because it is going to lead to a bit of a change in our thinking about how we approach perhaps mentoring in our schools and teacher development in our schools, because it's really important that we see the ECF as a learning curriculum and an entitlement for all our early career teachers. And it both reviews and builds on the content that they may well have been exposed to during their initial teacher training. And this cycle of review isn't something that we should avoid, but that we should embrace, because it's how we will ensure that they are best prepared to master the profession, basically, to become expert teachers, which, as we know, takes time and lots of practice. So my view is we shouldn't be suggesting that teachers who have only been through, who've just come out of initial teacher training, and yes, they might have had prior experience in the classroom, but you know, they're early career teachers. I don't think we should be suggesting that they might already have expertise in some areas, so can go skip through or take a light touch on parts of the early career framework. And that's not at all to denigrate their experiences in the classroom or the quality of their training. It's just recognising that this is a really important profession, and it really takes time to build expertise and confidence, and to be able to transfer some of that confidence to a different school or to a different class. And the ECF aims to ensure that all of our teachers receive that entitlement to that body of professional knowledge. And another thing that's a bit of a change in an approach is not to view mentoring as a process of problem solving, whereby a mentor may go into the classroom, watch what's happening, notice something that they perceive to be something that could be improved on, which might be different from what somebody else might perceive would be an area of improvement, and then focusing their mentoring on solving that problem, because now it's much more about coaching and supporting new teachers to know and to practice the content of the framework. So you're not just picking up on things that might arise. The mentor job is really important in ensuring that the early career teacher is exposed to the full learning, because if we think about it, if we leave some aspects to chance and just what we might happen to see, and we only deal with what comes up, it's really easy to miss some aspects. So it's getting your head around that idea that the early career framework, it all has to be covered, and that constant repetition and retrieval is all part of that development of those teachers, so that they can develop confidence and expertise. And it supports this idea that, in the words of Dylan William, every teacher needs to improve, not because they're not good enough, but because they can be even better. So an approach that might say, well, our early career teacher has great classroom management, so we probably don't need to worry so much about the behaviour management modules, is misunderstanding the framework as a curriculum, because we're trying to make sure they can be even better. So as I said, one of the appeals to us was that the Ambition Institute programme, it felt to me as if it really understood that aspect of how important it is to the early career framework. Having said that, there is also recognition of school context and the early career teachers' individual needs, which we will come on to later when we talk about our part in the process of delivering, because that's really our job, is to bridge the gap between the Ambition programme and you as a school. But just to summarise, the fidelity to the intentions of the early career framework was really key to us in selecting Ambition for our own schools. So just a little bit of extra information about Ambition Institute that you might be aware of. Although there are now 6 national providers, only 4 of those providers were involved in the early rollout of the early career framework. So one of them was Ambition Institute, the others were the Education Development Trust, Teach First, and the UCL Early Career Teacher Consortium. So through the early rollout, Ambition have already delivered the programme successfully to over 700 schools and over 4,000 participants. And actually, they were prepared to, in the year before last year, they were prepared to work with a very small pilot group. But what happened was that because of the impact of COVID on teacher training, the government asked those 4 national providers, can you make this available nationally? Can you let people sign up for it? Because we think those teachers that have had a disrupted training year could really do with the support in their first year. So Ambition very quickly and very adeptly had to scale up quickly to deliver to these extra people. So they've already got experience of that scaling up process, and they know kind of what they need to do to make sure that the delivery sustains quality whilst moving up in quantity. Now, again, in my view, working with a national provider that's already had a year's experience of delivery has massive advantages, because they've got a team established who've already undertaken the work. They already know what support was needed, so they can anticipate effectively the needs of participants. And a key thing for me is that actually they've already extensively trialled and reviewed the materials that will be used to train your early career teachers and mentors. And I know that firsthand, they have been very rigorous in their review, because we were a partner school in the early rollout. So we also delivered the early career framework within our trust to our own teachers last year. But that meant that we were involved in significant consultation and focus groups with Ambition over the last few months, where they've been gathering feedback on what are the strengths of the programme, what can we develop, what can we do better, what can we do to make your life easier in terms of you as schools needing to manage your early career teachers. And from there, they've really looked at where they can improve content and the delivery. So in other words, you won't be guinea pigs, because the entire programme has already been tried, tested and reviewed. And like I'm aware I've been very positive about Ambition Institute, but we're not the only organisation that has this faith in them. If you have a look at this quotation for a start. And kind of if you look around our local area, you'll see that Ambition has been selected as a delivery partner with a lot of teaching school hubs. And actually what we do know is when the national providers put their bids into the DFE to deliver the early career framework, Ambition Institute were the highest scoring provider. So as a result, they were awarded the contract for the highest number of early career teachers they could deliver to. So this really takes me on to, that's why we are working with Ambition. How is it that we are able to deliver their programme for them? So I'll talk now about our delivery and the support package we can offer you. So as I said, this last year we've worked in partnership with Ambition Institute as part of the early rollout to deliver the ECF to the early career teachers in our schools, and our experience was really positive. So when it came to the end of this year, moving into the national rollout, we really wanted to continue to access their early career teacher programme next year. Now our local teacher school hub, they've elected to work with a different provider. So it meant that if we were to continue working with Ambition Institute, we would basically be going it alone. We'd be doing it without a teaching school hub. So we would probably need to link with the Ambition Central team, or we would need to access a different teaching school hub a bit further away. However, when we were kind of wondering what to do, Ambition contacted us and asked if we would be prepared to act as delivery partner to schools in the local area. So given our faith in the programme and the fact that otherwise we wouldn't have had this available to other schools locally, they would have had to have travelled out the area to access the Ambition programme. We just thought it was a great opportunity to bring that quality to the area and to collaborate more widely with other schools and to build a network for our early career teachers too, because we think that networking aspect's really important. So because we've already delivered the programme through early rollout, I do feel we're in a really good position to support new schools in getting going and delivering the programme really well. I've got massive faith in our team. You've seen a couple of them all with me tonight. And when Ambition approached us, the link said basically partnering with Advantage Schools is a really easy decision because of the quality of delivery you've already offered, but also the levels of engagement that you've achieved in your schools. So In terms of the very small cohort that we aim to be working for, we're looking at working with a small number of schools, because we're not a teaching school hub, we're not working at that scale, but we're actually like overstaffed in terms of the size of our delivery team. But we think this is really nice because we think it means we can offer really high quality, but we also have the flexibility to provide bespoke support. So for example, you can see from our core delivery team, we've got primary and secondary specialism, we've got maths and English specialisms, we've got like a practical arts specialism, and we're also in the process of onboarding some more delivery expertise from within our trust, and we will have specialist colleagues covering humanities, MFL and science. As I said, Sarah and Belinda have experience of the role that many of you will be undertaking, the role of the induction coordinator or the school lead. So they are perfectly placed to support you and share their advice, because they've done an absolutely incredible job this year. And what I can tell you is we've had 0 dropouts in our school. We've had 100% engagement from our early career teachers across the trust in the self-study and the session attendance. And just in case any of you are in a similar position, the majority of our early career teachers were also in their second year with Teach First, so we can also support and advise you on balancing the needs of the ECF with that second year of Teach First, because obviously there is a bit of balancing you need to do there to make sure that your early career teachers aren't overwhelmed by the 2 programmes running side by side. I mentioned earlier how there are certain things that the DfE has said must be provided, but that different providers have then divided that delivery up in different ways. So our job is to take that Ambition Institute programme design and to adapt and deliver some parts of it for your schools. And I think a way to look at it is actually we're in partnership with Ambition, but we're also entering into a partnership with you, because we need to work really effectively with you to ensure that your induction coordinators and your mentors are really well trained and supported, whilst also providing additional training sessions for early career teachers that covers the aspects of the ECF that aren't easily delivered through the mentoring model. So this slide illustrates how the programme is structured, and I'll just talk you through sort of some of the different aspects of it. Where you can see there are conferences. So there are conferences for early career teachers, and there are also conferences for mentors. Now these are full days. So it would be 6 hours, basically, that means, and they're delivered face to face to around 40 delegates at a time. Now, because of the hours that have to be delivered face to face, Ambition have structured it like this because it means that the conferences alone meet the DfE specifications for the amount of face to face training that's required. So again, depending on what you think works best for your school, you'll see that other providers have actually split that face-to-face time down into shorter units. Maybe rather than a 6-hour conference, they've got 2 half days, or they've got 2 hours spread out over a longer period of time. Now, I personally find that the Ambition model works well for us because we think it cuts down on travel time of actually getting to those face-to-face events. It overall therefore means less cover, because although you might have a full day out, I think often when you think about a half day out and then it covers over lunchtime, it can be difficult to actually get back to school in a timely way. So I do quite like the 6-hour full day conferences, but I appreciate other schools might have slightly different needs around that. COVID allowing, these face-to-face aspects will go ahead, and at the moment we anticipate delivering these from Elstow School in Bedford. If you are joining us as a school and you've got a great venue, we would absolutely be open to running conferences from different schools as long as they were accessible to people joining the conferences. So that's the conferences. Clinics are much shorter. So a clinic is like a short twilight training session, which we would hold online, which means there is no travel needs and it's really easy to access. They're best delivered to 10 or 15 people at a time, and we can use them breakout rooms to facilitate more focused specific group discussions as well. And this is where I personally think that our smaller cohort can really come into its own, because we're hoping that schools will share information with us that will enable us to offer really bespoke contextualisation. So for example, I've mentioned that we have a range of subject or phase specialisms, so we can work with your cohorts based on that. We could, you know, if you happen to have a lot of early career teachers in a particular subject, or if we notice we've got a particular subject represented amongst our early career teachers, we can do something very bespoke in how we deliver those clinics to them. And likewise with our support for mentors, we can try and match them up with coaches that share a specialism with them. Another example will be that we have two schools that have communicated to me that although they're from very different geographical areas, they both have a significant number of GRT pupils. So it makes complete sense to me to look at running. There's a specific clinic that we will run on effective work with families, and it makes sense to me that we would actually run a bespoke session for those two schools so that we can really delve into their specific needs. So that's the clinics, and then there is also coaching on coaching. This is one-to-one support for the mentors, so it's arranged between the coach and the mentor. So every mentor will get assigned a coach from our delivery team, and they will arrange those sessions at a mutually convenient time to suit them. Now, again, we can try and match by phase or subject specialism and make those sessions as relevant as possible because they're one-to-one, so it's completely focusing on what does that mentor need to really develop them into being as effective a mentor as they can possibly be. And then alongside our input, early career teachers will also access weekly self-study units via an online platform that's provided directly by Ambition Institute. So they do those self-study sessions, and then they also have instructional coaching from their mentor, who will be a member of staff in your schools. So the self-study and the mentoring uses an online platform from Ambition called StepLab. So through this, the mentors and the early career teachers can access training videos, exemplification videos, reading materials. They have review quizzes to assess their understanding. And the programme also structures the coaching sessions too. So it really provides mentors with a clear structure and helps them identify appropriate action steps for their early career teachers. And the focus of the weekly coaching sessions is closely aligned to the weekly self-study that's undertaken by the early career teachers, so there's real cohesion in how it all works together. As school leads, you'll be able to track engagement with your early career teacher's self-study, with your mentor and your early career teachers' engagement with the mentoring process, and attendance at all of the clinics and conferences. So you will get progress reports from Ambition that will tell you exactly how well engaged your mentors and early career teachers are with the programme. Now, because we're working with a much smaller cohort, we really hope we can get to know you well, and it will help us provide a really bespoke service. So what we're looking for is for schools signing up to tell us what you need so that we can consider how best to support you. Now, because Belinda and Sarah have experienced the early rollout and know how much they relied on our network to stay on top of everything because it was all new and it was the first time they'd been through it, one of the things they were really keen for us to do is actually run some informal optional networking session for the induction coordinators. I feel that the national provider programs have really great support for mentors and early career teachers and opportunities to bring them together regularly, but I think that the role of the school lead also needs a little bit of support and attention. So we're hoping that by arranging 4 times a year these optional small networking groups, we can make sure that we're really supporting those induction coordinators in your schools. And we're hoping that for schools that are signed up before the end of the summer, you will be invited to an initial conference as well to really prepare you for what you need to do in September. Obviously, I've mentioned that we're hoping that we can provide bespoke support. We also know that a lot of early career teachers may well benefit from networking with colleagues in other schools. And again, this is particularly why we're keen to work with other local schools so that they can really make contacts and start to develop a professional network in the area. And we're hoping that COVID allowing those informal networking events, so they won't be the clinics, they won't be the conferences, they will be more social events, very informal, or just an opportunity to kind of discuss issues that they might have faced. And build those professional links with colleagues from other schools that are also at the start of their careers. And we also will enable your early career teachers, your induction coordinators and your mentors to access any of the professional development that we have for our trust staff. And we do think that's a valuable addition to our offer, because we are really serious about the quality of professional development that we offer. So staff across our trust receive really high quality training throughout their careers. As a result of the work that we do, we have around 300 visitors in our schools each year who come because they basically want to witness and learn from our practice. Our staff are often invited to present and deliver CPD to schools across the country and at conferences. This year and the last year, we've been involved in the National Exemplary Leadership Programme. We also have a behaviour school hub, Lead School, and as I mentioned, our CEO was part of the panel that wrote the Early Career Framework. So your mentors, early career teachers and school leads would have full access to our CPD programme. And although I'm still working on the specifics of our offer next year, this just gives you a sense of some of the core modules that our staff are entitled to, which they would be able to access. So, as I stated at the beginning, we went with ambition due to my kind of assessment and analysis of the quality of the offer, and the same applies to the staff that we'll be using to facilitate. So I know that obviously I would say that, so you don't need to just take my word for it. Because we were involved in the early rollout, we've already been through significant quality assurance measures with Ambition Institute, which takes place over the entire time that we're delivering the early career framework. And I just wanted to give you a little bit of a sense of how rigorous that process is. Firstly, the training we have is very comprehensive. So we have initial training where we're kind of inducted into the whole work of being a facilitator for Ambition Institute. They call us visiting fellows. And then after that, for every session we facilitate, obviously we get the resources from Ambition Institute to deliver it, but we also receive a handbook, which is a primer, and it outlines all the underpinning evidence, the background research, the rationale for the programme design. We also then book into a live briefing session with the member of staff that designed the programme, because you'll know as teachers that sometimes taking someone else's written resources, you don't always understand it just reading through it. So they make sure that we have these briefing sessions, and in that they go through the key parts of the session. They advise us where we should be looking to adapt it to make it relevant to the schools that we're delivering to, because that's a really important part of our work, is that we contextualise it for you and your schools, and then they just answer any questions that we may have. So once we've been through that kind of preparation, we then get to work on contextualising it for the cohort before delivering. We deliver the sessions, and the sessions are recorded, and then they are watched by our Ambition Link member of staff who takes notes to give us feedback. And we then have a one-to-one coaching session with that Ambition member of staff who talks to us about our delivery, talks to us about where it was strong, but also talks to us about where they feel we could have done better. And very much in the same way that your mentors will get coaching and your early career teachers will get coaching, we get coaching through how we can deliver and facilitate even better. It is a pretty intense process that we've gone through already this year, and that we will continue to go through as part of our Ambition's quality assurance processes, but it has really developed all of our delivery, and it does mean we can feel really confident now in offering our support more widely, having been through a year of this developmental process. And as I said, the QA will be ongoing for the coming year, because Ambition are really specific that they want the programme delivered with fidelity by their delivery providers. I'm really conscious that if you're still getting your head around the early career framework and all the associated language, it can be quite overwhelming. So I'm going to try to briefly summarise how the partnership works with the different levels of you, us, and Ambition. So if we think of Ambition, Ambition's job is to provide that online training for the teachers and the mentors that they do each week, the video content, evidence summaries, the quiz and reflection. And then that will be supported by a really clear structure for the mentor meetings, and a simple online platform is all provided for you to record the information and the action steps for those mentor meetings. Ambition also design and resource the learning content based on the best available evidence, and that includes the conferences and the clinics. And they also are just available to provide additional support and problem solving as needed, because they have a dedicated team to respond to any problems as they arise. Our part then is that we will organise and we will facilitate the face-to-face aspects of the training, so the conferences for mentors and early career teachers. We will organise and facilitate the learning clinics for early career teachers. We will facilitate the clinics for mentors, and we will arrange the coaching sessions with the mentors. We use all the high quality Ambition resources, but we do adjust and contextualise it so it's relevant for your schools. And as I said, we'll be hosting face-to-face events from Bedford, but we would like, we'd love it if other schools wanted to host. We'd be really open to talk about that. We will also provide ongoing support and training to your school leads in terms of helping you engage your mentors and your early career teachers and through those networking events. And in addition, you'll have access to our professional development courses within the trust. And then finally, your role is to appoint a mentor to support each of your early career teachers through those weekly coaching sessions. You will have a lead in your school, and in small schools it may well be that the mentor is also the induction coordinator. They will liaise with us, and we will support you with any needs you have around supporting the mentors and ECT. So we share that role of supporting the mentors and early career teachers. And then, because the early career framework is a learning curriculum, not an assessment programme, you will work with your appropriate body and ensure that your early career teachers are still assessed against the teacher standards. So you may choose to continue working with your current appropriate body. You may want to work with the Teaching School Hub as your appropriate body, and you will work with them, and they will do the 2 formal assessment points. And you will also need to do the progress reviews to monitor progress each term without formal assessment. So you can see here, just side by side, I think we're very aligned with Ambition in our approach and in the sense of wanting to deliver the early career framework as effectively as possible. So a brief summary: we can offer you high quality, but there's no cost to you because it's DFE funded. We will base ourselves in Bedford with the face-to-face sessions and the networking. We've already got a year's experience of delivery. The programme design is excellent and is from kind of industry leaders in education, training and development. And the curriculum and resources have already been trialled and refined throughout the early rollout. You can continue to work with your preferred appropriate body, and you'll have further access to our training. So just to finish off, I don't think we've got any questions, so if you do have a question, feel free to put them in now. Just some comments from, I'll skip that, to me, I've already said enough. Comments from, first of all, from one of our mentors. And from, very importantly, one of our early career teachers. So Q&A and next steps. If you are interested in hearing more, you can visit our website, and on there you'll find everything you need, including expression of interest form. I've also posted the link to that form in the chat now. You will get access to this recording after tomorrow. It will be sent to you along with the slides and links to any forms, and I'll also send you a help sheet which is just about navigating the registration process, whichever route you choose. So that will all be with you within the next 24 hours. We're available for a completely informal, non-obligation chat if you have any questions, and actually these have been really useful because it's often been where the context of schools is shared and we can really start to plan out the more bespoke aspects of our delivery. And if you're ready and you want to sign up, there is also a link to the registration form in the chat available now. So in terms of questions, Belinda and Sarah, can I just bring you back in? Hello. I think probably just to finish off, it would be really useful, as you have done the job of initiating this in the schools and supporting your early career teachers and mentors this year, what would your sort of key piece of advice be for people who are induction coordinators? Can we start with you, Sarah, from a primary perspective? What would an important piece of advice be?
Okay, thank you. There's a lot, well, I have lots of advice, but I think I've kind of whittled it down to a couple. Because we were able to attend the training in the summer of last year, it meant that I had then time to read through all the documents. I downloaded all the booklets, I had an electronic folder, and I downloaded the lead handbook, I downloaded the mentor handbooks, and I downloaded obviously ECT booklets. And it gave me time to then read through all the information, which meant that by September, I was then ready to go to SLT and say, well, here are my proposals for release time. This is what we're going to need to do. This is the order I think it's going to happen. And also work with Sally Stanton from Bedfordshire Schools about how we're going to raise awareness in our own school. And Sally put together a very short presentation right at the beginning of the year, showing and talking about the early career rollout and how that's going to look, because it is important that everybody in the school is aware of it, and they know kind of the makeup of it. And that's kind of my key few steps that we focus on in September.
Thank you. That's really helpful, and that is a really key point I hadn't said about making everyone aware, because you know it does have that trickle down effect through the whole school, actually, doesn't it, when you're raising the standard of training with your early career teachers. Belinda, is it the same at secondary, or would you take a slightly different approach? What would your advice be?
Yeah, so we've obviously got a larger cohort of ECTs, so many things exactly the same. I've got a couple of suggestions, mainly around mentoring, actually, as a piece of advice. So I recommend regular engagement with mentors. In a large context, this can get sometimes overlooked, sometimes maybe, but regular engagement could be personal emails, maybe group emails, online meetings, a nudge on the online platform that Ambition provides. So I know Sarah does this as well, but monitoring the engagement from ECTs using Ambition's online platform from Step Lab, it's really, really useful. And then they send us emails and weekly updates from Ambition, which we can then send out in an email to our mentors and ECTs with all the information in one place. So I do that on a weekly basis, because it's quite difficult to get in touch with everybody in a larger setting. And then my second piece of advice would be to carefully consider the allocation of mentors. We did think really carefully about who we were going to ask to be mentors for our ECTs, and I think in a secondary setting in particular, it's really important that I think to choose your mentor if you can within the same subject area, because this will allow for coaching conversations to be more effective related to the subject's curriculum as well. So those two things: recommend engaging with mentors regularly and consider allocation of mentors carefully.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. We are amazingly on time and we don't have any other questions to answer. So we'll finish off there. Please feel free to get in touch. There are, as I said, some links in the chat, or feel free to email me, sstanton@advantageschools.co.uk, if you would like to catch up and talk about any of this in more detail. And I shall now let everybody go and enjoy their evenings. So thank you, Sarah, thank you, Belinda, and thank you to everybody for taking the time out to join us this evening. And goodbye.